Hi, I'm Adam from Watford Opinions, and what a victory that is. 9 points in 9. If you're not stoked, I don't know what will make you stoked. Okay, so we're just going to have another match review. This was definitely a tale of two halves, as has been the case frequently this season for Watford. I mean, there really isn't much to say about the first half. It was boring. Stoke were dominating the possession. They weren't really able to create too many chances. So it's not like they were the more threatening team per se. It's just neither team had a lot going for them. There was only one shot on target in the entire half. It was that Chalobah shot after some pretty good link-up play with Will Hughes. Good to see Will Hughes back at full fitness. Though the main talking point from the first half especially has to be the formation and the tactical setup, because it started off as a 4-4-2 with Sarr on the left wing, which isn't natural, and then cleverly on the right wing, which is even more unnatural. So first off, you have to think to yourself, well, why isn't Sarr at least playing in his more natural right wing to start with? That seems like it would make more sense. And so then you'd only have one player out of position rather than two. And secondly, if you're going to have Sarr on the left, you have the sixth most creative player in the world from 2020 on your bench. Why wouldn't you have him on the right wing instead of Cleverly? And we'll get more to that later on how him coming on actually really changed the complexion of the game. So that was very interesting. But then after 20, 30 minutes or so, Sarr went back to his more natural right side. Will Hughes went out to the left side, which is a familiar sight from the early days of Javi Gracia during the 2018-19 season. As we've seen in the past, Will Hughes can play on the left if needs be. But the first half was just very low quality from both sides. There wasn't really much creativity. It was sluggish, a very Ivic-type performance. But then the second half was a completely different story. The first 10 minutes or so resembled that of the first half. But then Philip Zinkernagel came on, and he didn't have the best of games by any stretch of the imagination. He was all right. We didn't really see too many glimpses of what he's truly capable of. But he came on for Will Hughes, and that tactically changed the complexion of the match completely. Because that led to the Hornets being able to play with a better sense of normality. There's not really a kind of worry about how is he going to play on the wing and how should we shift over to accommodate for the non-natural winger playing in the wide position. As Zinkernagel is a true winger, they were truly able to hold the shape they wanted rather than have to kind of do some sort of modified 4-4-2, if you will. But then once Hughes came off, and Zinkernagel is a bit more attacking-minded than Hughes for sure, Deeney was actually afforded the license to drop back into more of a number 10 role at times, and that's where Deeney has been most creative in his hold-up play. And then that's where the first goal came from. Deeney got the ball on the edge of the box while Sarr and Pedro were both making runs in. Deeney did brilliantly to find Sarr's first of two phenomenal assists. This first one technically isn't an assist. And then Sarr wasn't able to get it around the keeper, but the keeper spilled it. Pedro was really lively to follow up. Got contact with the keeper, went down, valid penalty. And then Deeney, you're always scared when Deeney takes a penalty. I am too, because you think he's going to smash it down the middle, as he usually does, and as is usually successful. But you think, well, keepers are going to figure it out. They definitely have figured out where he's going to go. They haven't solved it yet, but this time he placed it a bit to the right-hand side of the keeper, and there was too much power on it for it to be kept out. But then, still, we haven't seen Xisco enough, so we still kind of had that sense of, well, now that we're ahead, we're especially on the road. We've been terrible on the road this season. You think we're going to be sitting back the entire match and absorbing pressure. Then Deeney found himself with the ball, played Sarr beautifully through. And again, Deeney was that more that kind of less natural, but more free, tucked in position, which enabled Sarr to burst by the last man. And then that finish from Sarr is something we've been missing. That's the finishing touch that Sarr hasn't really seemed to have, but now that it seems like he's found his stride truly, it's definitely a good sight to see, because a lot of times Sarr, we've known him as being a player who's able to get around anyone, to absolutely be a menace for defenses with his pace, but the one thing he's lacked is that final touch, that final shot. There was no lacking of that today. The finish was top drawer, top class. I mean, only the best in the world do that, so Sarr took that with immense composure, and it's really good to see he's getting that. Hopefully, teams don't see that and decide to up their bids that they're making for him. But regardless, Sarr did really well there. Deeney coming into a more deep lying position once that team was able to play with a bit more normality. Since Zinkernagel was out wide, that definitely helped. I mean, defensively, we were quite sound until the goal went in after we made a few substitutions. The lead up to the goal was kind of poor defensively. We weren't able to clear our lines, and they were coming down our throats with a counter. And then it was very well taken goal by substitute Fletcher. He did very well. That was a well-worked goal. Kind of similar to how Deeney set up Sarr, which ultimately led to the penalty early on. But then the game was sought out pretty well. And the theme of poor first halves can't be continued. And it's not to say we were terrible. It was just a lack of creativity, and it wasn't very Zisco-esque. But if this is how you're going to grind out results on the road, then so be it. You hold them first half and make sure you don't go behind, and then you come down their throats during the second half. So it was a very, very strong performance. And again, Zinkernagel, we've definitely yet to see the best of him, as he hasn't really been given much chances. Hopefully, perhaps he'll start against Millwall on Tuesday. But it was just once Zinkernagel came on, the team was able to be a bit more creative and innovative because they weren't worrying about a makeshift formation, if that makes sense. Again, the goals didn't come from Zinkernagel, and he didn't have too much time to show much of anything, but it was more the tactical mindset that was able to come into play once Hughes was subbed off. Hughes was probably taken off rather than Chalobah cleverly, just because Hughes is coming back from injury. We can't be overworking him, as he's one of our, if not our most important player on the season. And then, I mean, the one other talking point has to be the form of Daniel Bachmann. There really wasn't much he could do with the goal. His hand got near to it, but you can't blame him for the goal that went in. I mean, the team, they seem very comfortable giving him the ball at his feet. There's a couple times he lets the opposition come a bit close to him, and it's a bit nerve-wracking, but he's very composed. He did have a couple skewed punts closer to the end of the match, but there was something. They were awful, but just he looks so calm. He looks so natural in that save. I think it was on Fletcher or Allen. I can't recall exactly who. He had a save when the match was either 1-0 or 0-0, which was I think it was when it was 0-0, which was absolutely top drawer. The ball was spanked onto the open net. Bachmann made himself huge, got a strong hand to it to punch it far away. Then later on a curling shot from outside the box, he did really well to slide to his side and smother the ball rather than let it peter out for any sort of corner or into the middle of the box, because there was a Stoke player there to finish it off. So Daniel Bachmann's form has been really good, and I'm not sure if the torch has been completely passed to Bachmann from Foster just yet, but if Bachmann continues in the vein he has, it's going to be hard to see how Zisco says no to him, as has been the case with Sierralta. Sierralta initially came in as a player to fill in for some injuries, but then Sierralta seized his moment and has been too good to drop. So that's just sometimes how the cookie crumbles for these professional players. But overall, meh first half, phenomenal second half. Being able to do it on a cold night in Stoke is a major accomplishment for Xisco Munoz, especially considering how short of a time he spent with the Watford job. At first, people were skeptical about him when he came in because of his lack of experience, but I'm not saying this shows that you don't need experience to be talented, but what I'm saying is that's not all you need either. He does have the mentality and demeanor that the team needs, and he's really able to get the best out of a lot of his players. So if Watford play like they did in the second half for a full match, promotion is definitely in sights. But even with this shaky-ish first half, the past 3 matches, we look like a team that deserves to be promoted. Now, are we a top 2 team based on this form? I wouldn't say just yet. I mean, again, winning away at Stoke is impressive, but Bournemouth did that. Winning against Barnsley is decent, but Swansea and Norwich did that. And winning against Huddersfield Town, I mean, we lost them in the reverse fixture, but that's impressive. So I wouldn't say we should consider ourselves a top 2 team just yet, but we're definitely in the race for promotion, and the odds of that happening and the likelihood we go straight back up to the promised land looks a lot more likely than it did a few weeks ago. Thank you.